changes to scope and sequence. Now, there's a lot of reasons for the changes. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. We're going to talk about exactly what is changing. We're going to touch on the new kindergarten program that's kind of making everything shift. And it's going to be very informational. We went out to Facebook. So at the end, we're going to ask or answer some of the questions we've received from Facebook. And so let's get started. First of all, have you received your catalog? Have you? Have you ordered it? I'm going to drop a link on how you can get your catalog if you don't have it. Don't forget to order it. I want to know also, are you in here? Let us know in the comments. I want to know what page so I can look at your beautiful family. Today, I have with me Ronda. Ronda has been with the company for 14 years. She has had a pivotal role in creating a lot of our products over the years. He has also been a very big part of changing all these scope and sequence. Her and Judy have been doing a lot of work with that. Judy is a veteran Sonlighter. If you have been to our conventions, you have probably talked to Judy one time or another. She's been with the company for over 20 years. All 3 of her kids have graduated utilizing Sonlight, and she just had a new grandbaby. And then, of course, Barbara, you probably talked on the phone. If you've called an advisor, you might have gotten Barbara. Barbara has been with the company for 18 years. She has 2 boys who went from pre-K through graduation with Sonlight. And again, she's one of our advisors. I'm going to drop a link to advisors. They are going to be the key for you to be thinking about how to position your kids as they go forward. They have all the answers, I promise. And if you don't need an answer and you just need a prayer, they're there for that too. Let's get started. I want to start with Barbara. So I did mention that we have the new Sonlight Kindergarten and Sonlight Kindergarten Science Program. Barbara, tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, sure. So Sonlight's brand new kindergarten HBLK program uses superb history books to offer a broad, age-appropriate overview of American history. It's recommended for ages 5 to 6. You'll cover many of the pivotal people and events in American history and get a great big picture overview. You'll also round out your year with more than a dozen excellent early level chapter books. The program looks really good, and I'm actually thinking about buying it for myself. So that's that. Okay.
You're not the first person. I've heard about that.
Yes. Yeah. So then with the science, with the new Science K, your children can learn to think like a scientist. That's the goal, with brand new books and brand new experiments for kindergarten. Sonlight's great books will provide the content, while the experiments will provide the memorable hands-on experience. You and your kids will be making lots of new discoveries this year. For example, do you know what an ant's tunnel looks like? Or why a bee's honeycomb is shaped like a hexagon? You and your children will be finding out the answers to those questions. The overall content will cover ecosystems, meteorology, physics, and engineering design for Science K.
Very good. So as you can see, a lot of new great things in the kindergarten world. But with all these changes, there's a lot of shifts in our scope and sequence. So why did we change the history, Bible, literature, and the all subjects package ages and grade levels? Rhonda, do you want to start?
Right. This addition to the new K program, it gives us the flexibility that we needed to shift things to better match what our customers have been telling us. So a lot of times the customers say that it works better for their child at the upper age range that we had offered, or they had to spread out the course for an extended period of time. So with this new K, we can shift the recommended ages and the grade ranges to better match what our customers have been telling us. So after 30 years, we can finally do this. So some people also, they want to delay Core A, or HBLA, excuse me, a little bit because some of the topics are a little bit more mature. And so this gives them a great year to experience American history. Also, sometimes there are hard transitions between HBLC and D is a hard transition just because of the maturity of the content. Or with HBLF, sometimes that one is a little more difficult. So this will allow you another year for your child to gain some maturity so that they can attack those HBLs really well, and it will just fit them better. So we're really listening to customer feedback, and we really want to make a great experience for all our customers.
And I think too, Rhonda, one thing you didn't touch on specifically is that I think this change in those age and grade ranges is going to help people who want to teach multiple children together with the same HBL package. And so because, like you mentioned, we've adjusted those age and grade ranges based on customer feedback, now we have a more appropriate range on each one of those packages so people can combine their kids, which is one of the benefits of literature-based learning, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are the changes? Can you guys talk a little bit more specifically about how you change the grades and age levels?
Sure. Our HBL packages are still completely the same from B and above. Nothing has changed as far as books, as far as content. That is still the same. It's mostly just the label that we have on it. So what we recommend to you to use. So it will change the age range that we feel it's appropriate for and the grade ranges as well, so that you can better pick what you're doing. HBLA did change a little bit as far as content because we took some of the easier books and we put them in the new kindergarten program. So HBLA changed a little bit, but it's still really geared for that age range and will work really well. So we just changed the label on everything, really. Judy, did you have something to add for that?
Well, I think you're right. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is content really hasn't changed. So it's still a great literature-based program that it's always been. We've just adjusted our recommendations. And so, in fact, I created this cool little cheat sheet card for myself.
I was just looking for mine, Judy. I'm like,
yeah,
green paper.
So I can remember. I mean, after almost 20 years of memorizing the age and grade ranges for all these packages, now it's changing. So I made myself a cheat sheet. The graded packages, the all subjects packages, those have changed as far as the grade level that we've assigned, and then the History Bible Literature packages, we've changed the age and grade ranges on those. So again, it's just the fact that the content really hasn't changed, but we have changed those ranges. And I think the most important thing is to keep in mind that we can give you the best recommendation that we have to offer, but you're teaching to your child and you're choosing based on your child's skill level and what your child knows and is interested in. And so I think, it's scary when things change. It really is scary. But I don't think this is a scary change overall. And I think it's just important to remember that you're teaching to your child, not to our recommendations.
I did want to add, too, just a reminder that even though our recommended all subject packages have kind of shifted a little bit, and if you were using one previously, you won't find another one this year that's built the same way as before. But you can still build your own. You can customize your own all subject package to get the same discount. So even though the recommended has changed, you can still build your own and get the same discount. And you can always match, use the next level up. So if you used the HBLB, you can go on to C. If you used Matthew C Alpha, you can go on to Beta. So you know how to do that. You know how to match your child's skill level and what you'll need next, and you can build that package still.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that, kind of to Judy's point, you want to make sure that you're teaching to your child, and there's no reason for you to fret if you're past A at this point.
Right.
I also want to say that all of this becomes available April 1st, and we will have a tool online, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So
we'll be able to
tool on the page come April 1st on the Scope and Sequent page that will help you sort of guide where you should go next. So you can look at that.
Exactly.
Let's take a few Facebook questions we got earlier. So we had one that we've heard over and over again. Now that my kids fall in the younger side of things, or it's not even within the range, what do I do to bring him up to the suggested range? Or should I keep going or take a break from Sonlight? We don't want you to take a break.
Yeah.
Barbara, do you want to go with that one?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So here's what you need to remember, like what Judy and Rhonda had said. Just because we've changed the age recommendation doesn't mean the content has changed. You don't need to follow the age that we've labeled it. So if your child did well, with the B, for example, then you can definitely just move to C. It's going to be perfectly fine. You can still get the readers you need, the math you need. It's been recommended for over 30 years, so it's still appropriate for that age. If your child might not be ready for that next level, you can stretch it out. You could do C over 2 years, and then maybe get them in the age range. You just need to really look at your child's skill level, comprehension, the big picture. So it's really up to you, and like we've mentioned, your child's skill level. That's the big picture that you want to look at. And at some point, we would recommend making a chart, of your students over the next 5 or 6 years to see what you would use for them. Don't just look at this year, but look to the future also to see what it would look like. So yeah.
Very good. Very good. I want to say too, again, I'll say it again. I'm going to say it probably another time before we get done. Those advisors are here to help. So if you have specific questions, they are the people to reach out to. And I will drop a link on how you can get a hold of them down below so you can see that. So we had another question. Nicole asked, how do we realign now that the age recommendations have changed? Example, my plan was to do C with my 8-year-old and 6-year-old, 3rd and 1st grade. But I think C will be over her head. I'm guessing she did B before, although she didn't ask. Barbara?
Yeah. So the new catalog recommends C for ages 8 to 10, and the 2019 recommended for 7 to 9-year-olds. So you can certainly move to C. You'd be catering more to your oldest. That's a great option. At some point in the future, though, your younger may reuse C. If you just continue on that path, they just could reuse C at a later time. Or you could stretch, again, you could stretch it out if you want to wait to get to the D level with both of them. Again, look at your child's, level. The D currently is recommended for 3rd to 5th, so it's still appropriate for 3rd to 5th graders, even, April 2nd.
And stretching it out just means take 2 weeks to cover 1 week's worth of scheduled material. Very easy.
Yep.
For sure. So we get this question a lot. It doesn't really pertain to Scope and Sequence, but I will let us address it. Will there ever be a Canadian history supplement? How would you recommend fitting Canadian history in? Barbara?
Yeah, so I can't answer the question about a Canadian history supplement if we'll ever have that, but I can help with the other question about when to fit it in. So we are so most professors I've talked to, they don't want to spend 2 years in American history, D and then E, because they just don't need that much of American history. So what what they usually do is do the D plus E in 1 year. And then that same year alongside, they do Canadian history, at the same time. So while we don't have any book recommendations per se for Canadian history, there's 2 ways you could maybe find some. The Facebook, obviously, connections page is an awesome resource. You could search in, Canadian, Canada, whatever. And if you can't find it, just simply post a question. That's a great option. The other is way back, I don't know, years and years ago, we used to have a forum pre-Facebook, which is still around. It's archived, so you can't actually post on there, but you can read. Back in the day, we had a Canadian history forum for our Canadian customers. I checked today. It's still up. It's live, forums.sonlight.com. If you go there, you can click on, I think, the logo. And you can find Canadian History Forum. And I've scrolled through, and the links that people had made long ago for recommendations, book recommendations are still listed there. So that's a great resource that you can find some books for that.
Perfect. We hear you, Canada. We hear you. Can you talk about the language arts level and how to fit them in? She says her kids are currently doing LA1 and LA4 with level B. She did say that. So she's kind of wondering how that's going to look going forward.
Yeah. So she did say that she maybe made a mistake. I wouldn't really say that that's what she did. I would say that you really catered more to your oldest, to your youngest, because we recommend it typically for first to third graders now. And the gap between the first and the fourth grader is a little bit more broad than what we typically recommend, for that. But it's still great. I did B with my boys and I learned a lot. But at some point in the future, you may want to consider splitting them off, just because the gap is so large, and you don't want your youngest, eventually tracking through the upper junior high school levels with your oldest. So I'll explain now about language arts. So Sonlight's K through C, and I'll go slow. Sonlight's K through C offers options for readers depending on your student's skill level. So for example, with B, right now today, your choices are grade 1, grade 2, or grade 3 readers. The readers in those HBLs are not integrated with the history, okay, because the students are learning to read. The full integration of readers and history and read alouds doesn't begin until level D, as in Danny. And that's where the students are beginning, they're reading to learn, the reading to learn. So Sonlight's language arts is always integrated with the readers, even at grade 1, even at G. So language arts is always integrated with readers. So for example, if you're using B with grade 1 readers, we'd recommend language arts 1 because it's fully integrated. But we would also recommend, for example, if a student was then using also grade 3, you'd use grade 3 language arts. Starting with the lettered HBLs, D, you would use the integrated language arts D. So starting with D forward, same with F and G, you use language arts F and G because it's going to be then for an age range. So yeah.
Very good. Very good. We are probably just going to run through a few more questions. There was a ton of questions when we put this question out on the Sonlight Connections group. So we will go through and make sure we answer as many as we can. But again, Barbara and the rest of the advisors are your key to getting all personal questions answered. So Ashley says, I would love to hear about the high school course, high school HBLs, history, Bible, literatures. What the options are for each year and what typical high school years consist of as far as Sonlight choices. Barbara?
Okay. Yeah. So for high school, you really want to start planning, what you need maybe around 7th, 8th grade. And you also want to see if they're college bound. They might not be, they might be going to a technical school. You just need to kind of look at what they're going to be doing for high school. Might be going to a trade school, find out their interests and that sort of thing. And you want to also look at your state requirements. So while it's legal to homeschool in every state has different requirements for high school. So you definitely want to look at that. Look at what they need for math, for English, which is our literature. Lab science is usually history, electives, and of course, usually a foreign language. You want to look at the big picture of what they would need for their particular state and their circumstances. They're modularized, meaning that you can mix and match. For example, in the high school levels, if you want to do American History 120, but you're not particularly interested in doing the 130 literature, you could actually do the 230 literature, classic literature. So those are mix and match, just depending on what you want to cover. But for my students, for example, my boys, we covered 100, 200, 300, and 400 for high school, and that satisfied all the credits that they needed. We went a little bit beyond that for some other courses just because of their college track, but that's typical. But again, you need to check with your state and your college that they might be going to, if they are.
Perfect. And then I'll take one more of them. What about using K with slightly over the recommended age if they're probably not ready for D and have exhausted all other options?
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
for
Laura
that,
already said she wants to buy it for herself. So
right. Yes, I think, I don't know, I think, a 20-year-old could read it and learn something. So remember, you have to choose based on your child, like Judy and Ronda said. It's really about what's best for your child, not what we happen to label it, the recommended age and grade. So where do your students, fall in that age range? You want to look at that. You want to look what's included. If it's, you need a grade 2 level, for example, and it's included with K, you want to switch everything for table subjects to the grade 2. If you have a third grader, that's fine too. But you can always go back, and make the decision just based on what's best for your child. Some people might, do A, but they might then do, K, and then do A, and then do a B and C. They might just condense it and then just get to D, or they might skip B and C altogether. And, it just really depends on your students' skill level.
absolutely. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining me. Again, if you have any other questions, leave them here because we will have advisors come in and answer these questions as well. Don't forget, your Sonlight catalog is your key to everything 2020. So download your catalog today. Again, thanks for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.